Hello, everybody, and welcome to another wonderful episode of The Best Games Period, the podcast where we talk about a game every week, and we talk about whether or not it might be one of the best games of all time. And this week, we're going to be talking about Gen 1, Pokémon Red and Blue, and we have myself, Jack Gardner, and Naomi Lugo, the ever wonderful.
Super wonderful.
And this week we are joined by Kevin Slackie.
Hey, I'm not as wonderful.
I mean,
You're
you
more
might be.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful classic.
It's hard to compare. It's like apples and oranges. Like maybe some people prefer apples. Maybe some people prefer oranges. But you know, I don't know where I'm going with this. Please interject.
It's like comparing red and blue. There's just
there
different
we
things for
go.
different people.
And yellow.
And yellow. I'm yellow over here. I'm the weird one. So, how are the two of you? We're just coming off of Thanksgiving weekend. The holidays have officially begun. Black Friday was a thing. Yeah, what's going on? And what have you been playing? What's interesting? What's going on?
I've honestly been playing a lot of Let's Go, and it's been kind of funny because my brother was like, "Your nephew is into Pokemon, please help, I don't understand it, it sounds like he's speaking Chinese." And so I had to go over there and basically, like, help translate. And it was very weird finding out that my nephew's favorite Pokemon was Protopass.
What?
Okay.
Which, for those of you who don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of Pokemon, that is the evolution of Nosepass, and it was based on Groucho Marx.
What?
So
It's
it
a
has
giant
like a
nose.
giant nose and a weird little mustache. I'm like, okay, whatever you're down for.
Yeah, I'm dumbfounded, but I mean, that's definitely a unique favorite.
Yeah.
Did they say their reasons for that?
I think it's because he likes the fact that it has like those little options on the side, the little things on the sides of it that does the actual attack.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, this thing just looks like a fake nose. Like one of those
Yeah.
one of those fake noses you would get at for $1 at a joke store. You know, the store you go to buy jokes.
Obviously where we pick up our jokes. Oh man.
I missed going there, so all of my jokes tonight are going to be old and stale.
I mean,
Sorry.
alternatively,
From the discount
you might be
joke
getting
store. The
some
thrift
prime
joke
jokes.
store.
Yeah. The secondhand joke store. People have already laughed at those.
Yeah, so second time around there, you get a little That's pretty much all you're guaranteed.
But yeah, what have you been playing, Naomi?
Let's Go. Pretty much just playing Let's Go. I'm like 30 hours in, which, you know,
Dang.
I mean, that's really not
You're
too far
almost done,
for
right?
Pokemon. No, kinda. Not really.
Two-thirds of the way done.
That's the beauty of Pokemon games. You could play them for just the story, or you could play them forever and ever. So, depends on
I
the
know which one
livelihood.
you're doing.
Yeah, especially since shinies are a lot easier to get now. I need to get me some pretty shiny Pokies. But yeah, what are you playing, Jack?
Oh, I've been playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I really want to get through that game before the end of the year. I don't know how anyone in our profession actually manages to get through all of the open world games. I'm just like straight mainlining Assassin's Creed Odyssey and trying to anyway. I'm like 30 hours in. I feel like I'm not. I feel like I just got through maybe the second act. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like you definitely can't try to, like, catch all of the missions in Odyssey. You have to pick and choose.
Yeah, like, I was like, oh, maybe I'll do this later, and then, like, 3 hours later, I'm literally on the other side of the map. There's no way I'm going back there. So I've been playing that. And I've been putting some time into Overwatch and Bayonetta.
Wow.
I started doing a replay of Transistor.
How do you
nice.
have time to play multiple games? What?
I don't
What?
have time, is the thing.
Yeah. I feel like that's the complaint that everyone is having, is that there's just too many games now and it's impossible to actually beat them all. Which is kind of why I like Let's Go, because it's so chill.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't really had to care.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, you can just wander around a field catching ponytas for an hour and still feel accomplished. Yeah, the best phrase I've heard used about the game was by, I think it was like Jake Baldino from Game Ranks. They said that Pokemon Let's Go is like the video game equivalent to comfort food. And I was like, yep, that's totally what this is, because we all know the story. I mean, at least a big chunk of us like have played the games in the past. And it's just like a nice comforting stroll back, like when you rewatch a old series that you played or that you watched a long time ago.
So I haven't played Pokemon Let's Go. How much of the enjoyment of that game is rooted in nostalgia?
A fair amount, but honestly, most of my enjoyment is coming from how much the game respects my time.
Okay.
Which is a weird thing to say. Like,
yeah.
games nowadays don't respect your time. Like, you were just talking about Odyssey and how, like, feel like you have to do a billion things. Pokemon, like, Let's Go has been so streamlined where it feels like no matter how much I play, I can still accomplish something. And it has all of these extra sort of improvements that just, yeah, every time I play it, I'm like, oh, okay, I actually, like, accomplished something.
Yeah.
And it didn't just make me do busy work.
Yeah, like the maze stages, like Sylph Tower. I remember, like, as a kid, I hated that. I hated that level because of just how much walking back and forth, because you're in the level, you're basically it's a puzzle with like transporting platforms, and I hated that. Like, I still didn't like it as a grown-up just because of that childhood trauma, but it was not nearly as painful as it was in the past, and that's the same for like a lot of places where I felt like I was just drudging along in the old game.
Yeah, for sure. And I do have to point out two things that made me really sad. One thing that was just really dumb is they took out Cycling Road, because you ride on Pokemon in this one, like in Sun and Moon. It's now just called Pokemon Road, and like it just looks weird with all the bikers there. They're doing the same poses, but without the motorcycles. It feels a little off. But that's minor. The major one is the game corner is completely devoid of content now.
Really?
Yeah.
Like, I get why. It was problematic to have children gambling. But they didn't put in...
No!
They didn't put in, like, any mini games or anything. It, like, you literally go up to these arcade machines and it says, oh, look, it's a game about fighting Pokemon. It's like, oh, cool, a Pokken reference. But I remember when there were actual games here that I could play.
How are you supposed to get a Porygon?
Someone gives it to you.
It's within story, kinda.
Oh,
yeah.
Lame.
Yeah, very lame. And okay, so that's something I wanted to ask you about, Kevin. So with this game, it's obviously a lot easier than in the past. Like we just said, like people just give you these Pokemon. Like a big example is you get all of the starters just through story, and pretty quickly. And they have really great stats. But then we also have the Let's Go integration that makes it easier than ever to fill up your Pokedex, because, I mean, obviously, people who've been playing Pokemon Go have been capturing Gen 1 Pokemon for 2 years, so it's likely that they have a huge chunk of their Pokedex filled. And I just wanted to get your take on how that feels gameplay wise, because it feels it kind of cheapens the experience of filling out the Pokedex for me.
I mean, I'm kind of in the camp of it was impossible to do it as a kid. So the fact that you can actually do it now by yourself, for that matter, like, I'm still gonna trade with friends and stuff like that, but it was absolutely obnoxious trying to fill out the Pokedex back in the day. I know there are plenty of people who actually did it, but, like, I don't know, I'm kind of okay with it being a little simpler.
Okay. Yeah, that's totally fair.
Yeah, like, I just want to be able to, like, get to the team that I want. Like, that's particularly why I like the simplification of the IVs. For those that don't know, IVs were individual values, which were completely randomized depending on whether you caught the Pokemon, and you would have no idea just how good the Pokemon was, especially in the old days where they were just completely hidden. But in Let's Go, you actually get an IV checker. So it's a little bit better. There's still a little bit of eugenics involved, which I think they're trying to slowly back away from. But, like, Pokemon is a game for kids, and there were just suddenly so many walls in order to make it have more depth, when the depth should come from your team composition and the different strategies that you have there, not whether your Pokemon has, like, 4 hidden points in HP that people can't see.
But it really matters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, so, full disclosure, I haven't really played any of the new Pokemon since Gold and Silver, so, like, all of this stuff about IVs and, like, really tinkering and optimizing the different stats of Pokemon are things that are way beyond my experience with Pokemon. And honestly, when I hear about all that stuff, all I really want to do is go back and play the original ones, like Red and Blue. And when it still felt like it was actually doable to catch all the Pokemon, you know? Like,
yeah.
How many are there in the most recent one? Like 700 something?
The total number right now is 809.
Gosh.
Yeah, 809.
That's a lot. That's a big number.
It is a big number, but, I mean, the way the games work, you catch what is... Well, and it's weird with, like, Sun and Moon, but you catch the Pokemon in that generation in the game, and then, of course, you have the variables of, like, you know, the other game in the generation has the other side, and that's why you want to trade, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely been a lot of fun so far. I was definitely worried about the easiness of it kind of tampering my experience, but it really hasn't. I mean, except for, like, the beginning hour, which was just kind of ridiculously easy. But that's fine, you know, like, hitting Brock, like, one-hitting Brock is, you know, it's okay. And then eventually it gets a little bit more challenging, and I was actually pleasantly surprised by the actual challenge behind the catching mechanic. And I don't know if you felt this too, Kevin.
I've been both happy and really disappointed with the catching mechanic. In the beginning, when it's like, oh, you could throw the Pokeball and maybe it'll bounce out like 1 or 2 times, it was fine. But as I'm getting later into the game, Pokemon are being more fussy, is the word I want to say. And then it gets to be the point where sometimes it's like, okay, this is too much. I think it was really apparent when I finally got to Go Park and was able to transfer some Pokemon from Go. Now, obviously, I was transferring some good Pokemon, but, like, they would pop out of the ball so much and then run away, but they would still be in the park. And it seemed very ridiculous that I had to waste so much material trying to catch a Pokemon that was already mine.
Yeah, and one that you're gonna get anyway. Yeah, I can see that point. Yeah, so, like, the way it integrates Go is obviously you have the motion control mechanics, But then they also throw in, you have to be able to get the ball into the circle, and the circle will get smaller in a little time. And depending on what your timing, you'll get a good, great, or excellent throw. And I feel like it's not totally consistent later on in the levels. Like, if you throw an excellent at a level, say 30 something, and your highest Pokemon is like 50, and that bounces out, that seems a little bit wrong to me. So I'm confused at how they actually design that mechanic, because I haven't been able to find a consistent flow with it yet.
Yeah, for sure. I will say, though, that having the Pokemon just sort of spawn in the overworld has been a very welcome change that I thought I would not like. But being able to just be like, oh, okay, this is going to be another Rattata, like, being able to skip those first couple Pokemon that you've already seen a billion times has been a real godsend.
It's so lovely. Lovely.
Honestly, think back to when you were a kid and playing Red and Blue for the first time, and what you wouldn't have given to just not have to deal with any more Pidgeys or any more Rattatats or whatever, you know?
Or Zubats.
The garbage
freaking
Pokemon.
Zubats.
Yeah.
Because Zubat doesn't get good until Gold and Silver, when Crobat's a thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Gen 2.
And in Gen 1, it's just freaking annoying and terrible. And it is a pain in the ass to catch, too. Like, freaking Zubat.
Yeah, it's not great, and it is great that you can just, like, catch one and be done.
Yeah, and
like,
catch a
never
Golbat
have to,
right next to it.
Yeah, you never have to run into another Zubat again. So, yeah, I don't know. Everyone's complaining about how simple this game is. I just really like that I can turn it on, play it, and just chill out. Like, you can, and you can still get that competitive team while you're chilling out. It doesn't have to be this, like, extremely obnoxious endeavor. I mean, it can be. They still have bottle caps from Sun and Moon, which let you tweak those invisible values, like, even further. Like, there's still that dumb stuff in it, but, like, taking out breeding so I don't have to spend 3 hours walking back and forth on the same road hoping this Pokemon gets a hidden ability that I have no idea the chance it's gonna get. Like, that's the thing. Like, I used to love grinding in RPGs, but as I've gotten older, I'm like, this takes a lot of time.
It really,
that I
really does.
Don't have. I think we'd be having a different conversation if this was like the new Mainline games.
Mm-hmm.
But since it's not, like, it's fine. And I think I was also wondering why they wouldn't let you transfer Pokemon back to Go. But now that I've seen how this game plays, I'm actually really okay with it. Like, sure, you can get every single shiny, but if it's just kept to that game, it doesn't really affect anyone else.
Yeah, that's really true. Because, I mean, yeah, like, seeing everyone just get a string of shinies was a little bit ridiculous at first, but then I was examining, like, why I felt that way. I was like, it's because the hype around shinies has been so high and so exclusive for so long, but in reality, like, it's fun to actually be able to hunt for shinies and get them, like, instead of just going through pain, you know? Like, and I'm not knocking, like, actual shiny hunters at all. Like, what they do is awesome that they actually have the attention span to do it, and it makes when they get the shiny, like, such a cool moment. But it's cool for someone like us, you know, where we don't have time or patience anymore. We can just get a shiny if we want to, you know? So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It was so ridiculous that the first time I got a shiny was, like, X and Y. Like, yeah. I've been playing the series since the beginning, and that was the first time I ever encountered a shiny.
Yep, mine was in Pokemon Go, and it was a freaking Shelder. That was my first shiny ever, after a lifetime of playing the game. It's like, gah! So, yeah, I feel you.
Going back to grinding, do you guys think that that's kind of like an outdated, or will be an outdated concept in game design?
That's really tough.
I mean, if we're relating it back to even our earlier discussion about valuing time, does grinding add anything to the core gameplay experience? Aside from forcing you to invest time into the game?
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely does because, I mean, when I played older games when I was younger, it forced me to analyze, like, well, how do I put this? It forced me to use my time, right? And then that made me appreciate what I was doing so much more. Like, I'm grinding to get my team leveled up so I can take on whatever gym or go to the Elite Four. And that made the experience of actually beating the Elite Four, like, so much more amazing because it took real dedication to do it, you know? And that real life dedication is just, it's hard to convey in video games, I think, except for in RPGs like this. So I like the grind. But I also appreciate not having to grind this game. But that's because, I mean, it's a remake, you know? Like, it's Pokemon Red, Blue, Yellow. Like, we've already seen these games to death. We've played these games to death. So it's just, it's a nice new coat of paint. And it's refreshing versus just having to go back and do all over again. Like, I don't know, a good example is like when you pop in a classic game on an old system. It looks like crap, and chances are it's probably gonna play like crap. And unless you're really willing to dedicate your time to relive that experience, it's not gonna be worth it for a lot of people later on, you know? So I think this type of game design, at least for a remake, is a great idea. It makes it a lot more accessible.
So what about newcomers who come in who have never played Red and Blue?
Yeah, I actually have a good point on that made me more okay with less grinding. So you think about it, nowadays a lot of parents will limit the amount of time that kids have on a particular game console. Like, oh, you can only play for a half hour. So, like, this game is even better in that way, in that kids can actually play it. Like,
yeah, instead of like putting it under their covers and hope, like, with the flashlight in their mouth, because I totally did that back when Game Boy didn't have the light.
Yeah, I feel like we all did that a little bit, but like kids can actually go and play through the game and enjoy it. And yeah, like, the game next year, there's gonna be all of that grinding, all of that extra ridiculous game design in it. So for this one, like Naomi was saying, like, we've already done this, or people who are new to it, they don't really need to start with that. They can start with how it was for us, because back in the day, we had no idea about IVs. Like,
yeah.
No one knew about that for a while, or, like, God, I think before Special was only one stat.
I can't even remember.
There was so much ridiculous, like, going back to those old games, there was a lot that was actually pretty flawed. I think my favorite piece of trivia is they accidentally made it so that way every Pokemon that could fight psychic types was weak to them. Because, like, Poison is weak to Psychic, and the ghosts were. Most of the bugs were poison. There was no Dark type yet, or Steel, which were both put in to kind of, like, counterbalance Psychic types. So it was pretty lawless, and the only way to actually consistently beat Psychic types was in order to try to get as many critical hits as possible. And because critical hits were based on speed, the best Pokemon was a Jolteon that knew Pin Missile.
Huh.
Yeah.
So, all of that extra ridiculousness because of just a small oversight.
Yeah, but then, I mean, there's the... Oh, sorry to interrupt you. But there's, like, an accomplishment to knowing those facts and to have someone who figured that out and having that be a part of, like, Pokemon history, you know?
Yeah, it was also, like, not working as intended. So it's kind of nice to actually go through this game with it playing a little bit closer to that, at least the battles.
Yeah.
Though I will say, I think one of the big factors of it being so dang easy and less grindy is the moves that your partner Pokemon can learn are absolutely 100% overpowered, and I can say that. Like,
yes.
like I have Let's Go Eevee, and it can learn a move that is called Sizzly Slide. It's a fire attack. It's got, like, actual good attack. I think it's, like, 90. And it always leaves the target with a burn.
Yeah, it annihilates Pokemon. It's ridiculous.
With 100% consistency. Or, like, there's another one that, like, raises your team's defenses and does damage at the same time.
Yep.
So, like, I think people who want that extra challenge can find it. And I feel like that's a general game design strategy that Nintendo has taken, where it's like, you can actually get through the game if you want, but if you want something harder, like, you can just handicap yourself. Like, there's Nuzlocke runs, people will do that with Let's Go, and it'll probably be even more entertaining. So, like, I feel like game design-wise, they're going in a good direction, and that includes minimizing grinding. Because I don't remember grinding ever being fun. I remember it being the work that I put toward fun. And that's a really weird thing to think about, because you're playing a video game for fun, but so many of them had work involved.
Yeah. I don't know. And there was definitely lots of, like, head slam moments, like, no! So, yeah.
Sometimes I wonder if we all just have Stockholm Syndrome about a lot of the games we played as kids, because we spent so much time playing them.
Yes, absolutely. I've said this many times. It's like the Pokemon and Nintendo brainworm. A lot of us have it. We'll just keep on putting up with Nintendo's BS because we are all infected. So, absolutely, we have Stockholm Syndrome.
I think the first time I got, like, confronted with this, I was trying to go back and play Red and Blue for nostalgia, and I had forgotten that the old games didn't have B to run. And I just remember how suddenly it felt so incredibly slow to play those games. Like, the walk speed was so terribly, like, beyond slow.
Just painful.
So, it is definitely the point where I'm just like, yeah, you know, these games do need to be better now. Like, the remakes have to be a step above.
Yeah.
And are they?
I think overall, yes. I think one thing that people will definitely notice is lacking is the lack of post-game content. So I think you played Gold and Silver. That's the game that knocked it out of the park, because the post-game content was, oh, suddenly there's another continent for me to go to. And that set the bar so high that other games afterward have done, like, so much. Like, I think one of the better ones recently was Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, where they had an entire episode that explained the Pokemon timeline. It was very ridiculous and ended with a fight in space. And that's kind of all you really needed. Or, like, Sun and Moon had the Ultra Beasts, and I haven't actually gotten through Ultra Moon. Embarrassingly enough, but, like, sorry, to get back on topic, I think people are gonna definitely notice that once this game is over, it's over. Like, there's the Master Trainers, which I'm sure you'll, like, go after the ones that are your favorite Pokemon. Maybe some that aren't. But that's pretty much it, other than shiny hunting and maybe grabbing Mewtwo. So I think people are gonna notice that pretty quickly, considering that's become such a staple in the series, of at least having something beyond the end to kind of keep you still a little attached in the world for a little longer.
Yeah, because, endgame content it's beefy. It is truly beefy in a lot of these games. So, yeah. How do you think this game will hold up in the competitive scene?
I'm not sure. I thought that by now Smogon would start having... Smogon would be...
Yes, some additional information for those of you out there who might not know what or who Smogon is, I totally know, but maybe you could explain.
Right.
It's one of the premier competitive resources for Pokemon, where usually people will post some of their winning strategies for those Pokemon, including their natures, where their IVs should go, the exact moves that they need to have. It's been pretty good with that. But I haven't noticed anyone putting anything down for Let's Go.
Yeah, I haven't seen any buzz about competitive yet.
Have they confirmed that it's going to be in a competitive anything? It doesn't really strike me as the kind of game that would be.
Yeah, because there's so many factors that make it so that you can buff your Pokemon up. Like, one feature is like the candies. You can feed your lacking Snorlax some extra special attack if you want to be a special attack Pokemon. Granted, it'll take a lot of them, but I don't know how they would balance that out in a competitive scene. But I mean, it's Pokemon, so I feel like there's gonna be something in that regards somehow.
Yeah, it's just a little difficult with the way that Nintendo did it. The online features for this game are really strange. Nintendo made it so that way you have to pick the same 3 Pokemon to make a room, basically like in Pokemon Go, only with raids. But it feels really weird. Like, you can't just do a Wonder Trade or something, which I felt was one of the best casual components of Sun and Moon. It was just, oh, hey, I have a bunch of these extra Pokemon. I'm just going to throw them in Wonder Trade and see what weird stuff I get. Like, I think my favorite was I got a definitely hacked shiny Ditto that had, like, 4 perfect IVs. It was very dumb, but very great. So I'm not sure about it, and to top it off, I haven't really confirmed this yet, but I think when you beat the Master Trainer, they unlock having an ability on the Pokemon, which is so strange, because usually abilities are just there from the outset, or they weren't there at all. So to have them be endgame content is a little off.
Yeah.
So I think that the rules to make it competitive are gonna be... They're definitely gonna have to go against the game's design in order to make it truly competitive. But, I mean, people did that with Melee for years, so I don't see why it won't be. Or if you're gonna keep coughing, you might want to evolve into a wheezing at least.
Anyway, I'm back. Oh god. Yeah, I mean, especially when you have the Go integration, you can pretty much, like, sneak your Pokemon into this game from a completely different game. It seems like they would have to do something about either, like, banning Pokemon from Go, or I don't know. I don't know how that would work.
I think the big thing is just gonna be, like, maybe banning Mewtwo.
Yeah.
Honestly, with the Alolan forms, there's a lot more dark types this time around, so Psychic isn't nearly as scary. So I don't think that that'll be the issue. I think the main issue will be, like, actually making matches. But you know what? Another great example is Pokken Tournament is another Pokemon game where they made it excruciatingly difficult to play competitively. Because normal fighter games, you just 1 console, 2 controllers, you're done. Pokken, you needed 2 completely different setups. So, like, 2 TVs, 2 Switches, 2 controllers.
Oh, what?
All of that before you could actually play competitively. And Pokken had a pretty healthy competitive scene for a while, considering, like, it was first Wii U only. Which, God, those were the dark days. We don't talk about those days when you had to connect Wii U's via, like, a LAN cable.
It's probably, like, a specialized cable, too. Like, you couldn't just use a LAN cable.
Always with Nintendo. Always. Ugh.
So, I could see this being competitive. I can also see a lot of people are just gonna play it for, like, 20 hours and move on. Because that's what this kind of game is. I think that this is the perfect palate cleanser while we're waiting for Gen 8. Though I might just be saying that because, like, right after this, I plan on, like, finally beating Detective Pikachu.
Just in time for the movie to come out next year. Yay!
Right? Thoughts on the Detective Pikachu trailer?
Oh my god. Well, they did Jigglypuff dirty. That's my thought.
Well, so I thought that too, but if you read Wigglytuff's, I forget which game, but one of its Pokedex entries says that it has fur. Like, you just don't think about that because they've been so cartoony for so long. But,
I mean,
like,
that's fine. He can be fuzzy, but does he have to be so creepy? I mean,
yeah.
No.
See, that's what I actually like about it, because it reminds me of, like Labyrinth. Like, 80s,
Oh, yeah.
80s movies that are grungy and dirty and kind of gross. But just translated from the 80s to now and done up with CG, and I think that parallel works pretty well for what Detective Pikachu looks like it is.
But I don't want Pokemon to be in a dirty, grungy world, because then that opens so many portals that I don't want to look into.
If you think about it, it was already all cyberpunk from the beginning, and yet you already had coughing.
It's post-apocalyptic,
and
okay?
And Muck. You had Muck. Muck's a gross Pokemon.
Garbodor.
I have to say, I do appreciate that they went with the lifelike Pokemon. Like, they could have easily taken the path of least resistance and just used the cartoon characters and juxtaposed them with real people, and it would have worked, and everyone would have loved it. Been like, hey, this is like the second coming of Space Jam. But they
What's
went
wrong
that
with that?
They went
Jam
that
was
extra
bad.
mile.
That's what.
No.
Space Jam is nostalgic for certain people, but there is a very big
It's the jam.
purposeful juxtaposition between, like, Bugs Bunny and Michael Jordan. Whereas in this Pokemon world, they actually look like they coexist, which is kind of the whole point. So it may not be, like, the prettiest at times, particularly with Mr. Mime, but it's believable. And, like, seeing my favorite Pokemon, seeing Venusaur in that bazaar, or, like, God, what else? Seeing, like, that tiny little Pancham or the Greninja, like, they look real.
Also, let's be real. Mr. Mime was always a freak of nature that any sane person would shoot on sight.
Oh,
Just
yes,
saying.
especially if you see how he walks in Let's Go, he just walks like a normal human. It's very
horrifying.
disturbing. And, like, someone pointed it out, there's a lot of the very humanoid Pokemon that are legitimately disturbing. Like, if you think about it, Hitmonlee has his eyes on his chest. That's a little weird. Or
He does have eye
Hitmonchan.
nipples. Yeah.
Yeah, Hitmonchan is a little man. He's a tiny person. Or my personal favorite that Let's Go really hammered home is Haunter is, like, 5'3" and is just a giant face.
Yes.
Like,
and
the Pokemon world is disturbing. They just haven't done it to scale, and now that they're starting to, people are like, oh, right.
it's a
They're
giant
not
Pokemon
goat.
is
all
kinda
pocket
strange.
monsters.
Yeah, like, my partner was legitimately disturbed when he saw my character riding on Haunter. He's like, what? What? Like, that's not Haunter. I'm like, yeah, it is. So...
Isn't Gengar even bigger, too?
No, Gengar is actually shorter. Gengar is 4'11".
Dang. Okay.
That's one of the things I've been struggling with now, is seeing some of them. Like, for a while, I thought Skorupi, not Skorupi, it's like Evolution. God, I forget its name. There's a lot of Pokemon. Anywho, I thought it was a little intimidating, but I think it's only like 4 foot tall. I'm like, oh, it's like a very large scorpion. I mean, that's still scary, but it's not like
It's
Onyx
adorbs.
scary. It's not this giant rock snake that could literally lay on you.
Yeah.
It is very interesting to see. I think one of the things I noticed is they were saying that Articuno, which is only one of in the existence of all of Pokemon, or supposed to be, and someone had already caught it, and it made me realize, wait a second, some Pokemon are like literal embodiments of natural disasters.
Mm-hmm.
Or like,
or the devil.
or like, it really makes you think about the fact when they're like, sometimes Gyarados go on a rampage and will wipe a town out of existence. You're like, oh, right. That's because Gyarados is like 9 feet tall and literally powered by rage.
Yeah, they are monsters.
Yeah. So they're cuddly too.
Some of them.
Some of them are.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if Pikachu should have been that fuzzy, but I read online someone had a really good theory about it, which is that Pikachu is always electrified, so its fur is always like has static electricity to it.
Aww.
So that's why it's like all bristled out and whatnot.
That's adorable. I'm all for that. But yeah, I mean, especially when you look at like the Pokédex entries for some of these guys, it's another world going on there. A lot of them just don't make sense, and a lot of them are just plain horrifying. Like Drifloon is an adorable balloon Pokemon, but really it eats the souls of wandering children or something like that. I
think its worst entry is it's like it eats the souls of wandering kids and it doesn't like fat kids.
Oh my god.
Like
Great,
that's
and
legitimately
it's fatphobic.
one of them where it's like, oh, it wants to lift this kid up but it can't, so it's really upset. It wants to eat its soul.
But it's adorable. Yeah, I guess I like that line drawn very firmly in the ground that I can exist in my La La Land of Pokemon and not have to think about a world where Pokemon are definitely being exploited by humans in that world. Yeah.
Oh,
For
yeah,
sure.
100%.
Uh-huh. I just don't want to think about that, so.
I do have to say, and I know that this is a very popular opinion, and it's a huge missed opportunity that they didn't get Danny DeVito to do the voice of Pikachu. Like,
yeah.
No joke, he has the perfect voice for what I want to hear coming out of a hard-boiled detective in Pikachu form.
I'm just glad. I'm hoping they didn't, but in the original Detective Pikachu game, Pikachu was kind of horny on main and it was a little awkward. So in the trailer when he goes, "Yeah, kid, they can't hear me." He first does that in front of a receptionist in the game, and he's like, and she's like, "Hey, you're so cute," and Pikachu's like, "Hey, you ain't half bad yourself, doll face," or something like that. And it was just like, oh, okay, this Pikachu's horny on main and addicted to coffee. I don't know what's going on here.
Howard the Duck situation going on, and that's what I like to avoid.
That's a deep cut. That is.
Deep cut. I have reasons. I don't just think Jigglypuff is creepy. There's a whole lot of other creepiness that's underlying there.
Yeah, to be fair, it is going to be real weird, and I'm waiting. The most awkward thing is going to be seeing live-action Mewtwo. He is coming. He's going to be in the movie.
Oh, man.
It's going to be real awkward.
I'm just super excited for this movie because no matter if it's good or bad, it's going to be weird, and I'm here for it.
I'm here for that. I'm also, people didn't seem to notice this, but the main character is a person of color.
Yeah.
Like in Detective Pikachu, Tim was white as can be. So they're making a lot of
what's his name? Justice Smith?
No, Tim Goodman.
No,
the actor.
Oh, yeah, Justice Smith. Yeah, they're making a lot of educated risks with this movie and with Let's Go, and I legitimately think it's paying off.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely have the backing to do that, so Nintendo should.
Let's be 100% honest. I don't think Nintendo is the one taking any of these risks. I feel
no,
Nintendo
they're not.
just
They're
shoved
just
a bunch of money
allowing
at someone.
Yep.
And they're
I think they
just running
took
it.
that risk with Let's Go, and I do think that there should have been better accessibility for the controls. Like, I'm kind of annoyed that anytime I want to play Let's Go, I have to be willing to This is going to sound so lazy, but you have to be willing to move. But I also was lucky enough to get one of the Pokeball controllers, and I'm not going to lie, that is an incredible experience, because it's the little Pokeball, and you throw it to catch the Pokemon, and then it, like, lights up and does the little, like, rumble shake as the Pokeball is, shaking, and it's too much. Or, you can put Pokemon in it. Like, there's an amazing amount of technology in this controller. You can put Pokemon in it and take them with you, and unfortunately, the only Pokemon that have voices are Eevee and Pikachu. The rest of them do their, like, old game cries. Like, oh, I have it right here. So, like, you turn it on. You could hear Venonat. But with Eevee, they didn't make it say Eevee. They kind of made it sound like it's saying elbow, or to me, it sounds like it's saying A-boy. So I'm just, like, walking around with my Pokemon hype man, and it's been incredible. Like, this feels like the second coming of the Pokewalker.
Oh gosh, that was a thing, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It was. And
it was definitely.
Believe it or not, that was, at the time, the most accurate pedometer on the market. Which is just a testament to how weird Nintendo was. Like, not only did they make a pedometer for Pokemon, but they decided to put some of the best technology in it possible. So, like with the Pokeball Plus, it not only connects to Pokemon Go so that you can use it like a Go Plus, it can be used as a controller for the Switch, and you can walk a Pokemon in it. And, like, they'll come back. Sometimes they'll call out to you and be like, hey, play with me. Then you come back from the stroll and there's extra items, which makes it even easier. But I see that the experience was definitely, like, this controller was tailored to the Let's Go experience. And so, yeah, I really appreciate that Nintendo and other companies are, like, taking these risks for Pokemon. I mean, it's a 20-year-old franchise. I'm okay with them, like, shaking it up a little bit, especially when they're like, oh, and by the way, like, the thing that you know and love is still gonna be there, like, it's coming.
Yeah.
And part of me theorizes, based on, when I was at Game Informer and found out this story where they had walking models for every single Pokemon. So, like, at the time, it was less than 800, but there was a sizable amount of Pokemon walk animations. I think that Let's Go was honestly a test that they realized that they could sell. So Let's Go honestly has me way more excited for Gen 8. Mm-hmm. Like, could you imagine all the Pokemon you could have walk alongside you and just, like, chill out with?
So do you think Gen 8 is going to keep that same aesthetic from Pokemon Let's Go?
Maybe. I don't think it's going to be as chibi. I feel like with the mainline games, they've been straying from that. I've also noticed that the protagonists have been getting older, which, like, you don't think about it, but everyone in Pokemon is incredibly young. Like, Jesse and James are canonically 15 years old.
Ew, gross.
I don't like that.
Yeah. They're teenagers.
Take that knowledge out of my brain.
Gross. I'm going to add 20 years to that and just live in La La Land.
I believe in X and Y, you were, like, finally, like, straight up 13. And I think that's more than okay. I kind of want Pokemon to grow up a little bit.
Yes.
And if they want to have Let's Go where you still, you know, aren't as adult, it's totally fine. Like, I can see both series coexisting. And I'm not just saying that because I'm beyond hype for if they do, like, Let's Go Gold and Silver. I would probably cry a lot.
That would be so great. One thing I do want is more character customization. My god, come on, Pokemon.
Yeah, like, let's talk about that. I don't know why they went so hard in X and Y. Well, I do. It's because it was based in Paris and they wanted it to be very fashionable. But even, like, Sun and Moon was a step back from that, because suddenly you're only allowed to have shorts if you're a guy. Like, they kind of spoiled everyone with X and Y with the sheer amount of trainer customization. And, yeah, you're right, with, like, Let's Go, it's just recolors and reskins.
Yeah, like the exact same face and hair for everyone, with just different skin color, which is also in Pokemon Go. But yet we still get like a bunch of cool different clothes, but they can't give us different hair. Like the very minimal thing, just different hair.
Yeah, my partner is currently very upset that there isn't any red hair in Pokemon Go, which is just like a natural hair color.
Yeah.
I think you have to think of Pokemon Go as a game in progress.
As so many are these days.
So many are. Which is another thing that's nice about Let's Go. Like, even though there's no post-game content, like, that's the game. You just bought the whole game. You're not gonna have to buy DLC. And hell, you're gonna have to do that with Smash Brothers even.
Yeah.
Pokemon Let's Go is like a complete experience, and this is gonna be a weird thing to say, but it's a game that doesn't try to sell you more things, which is so rare nowadays that you don't think about it. Like, you start up a game and it'll advertise DLC to you or something like that, or loot boxes. Pokemon Let's Go is just, this is it. This is the video game. This is the whole thing. And that's a little refreshing. I don't have to get, like, bombarded with advertisements even in my own home.
Yes. Which, yeah, like you said, is so rare. Even in Pokemon Go, you can buy a crap ton of stuff because it's a mobile game and that's how it makes its money. But yeah. So, I think we're about at the time of the show where we do our reflections. So, I mean, this is a little different since we're kind of reviewing two games at once. So how do we tackle this?
Here's the question I think we can use to decide this. If you could only have one game, Pokemon Let's Go or Gen 1 Pokemon, which would you take?
Like, would the old one be, like, erased from my memory, or do I just not get to go back and play Red and Blue?
No, like, Red and Blue are just gone. We're erasing them from existence, and all we have is Pokemon Let's Go. Or, erase Pokemon Let's Go from existence, and all we have left is Red and Blue.
This is the weirdest Infinity War snap. But I'm gonna be real, because I've tried to go back and play Red and Blue, like, fairly recently. I was kind of hyped for Let's Go and decided to try to go back. Those games are rough. Like, you don't remember it, but like, because we were kids when they came out, or even if you weren't, like, you didn't have anything to compare it to. But to put it in perspective, that game was like in development hell for like 6 years. And it's rough.
They were developing that since 1990?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
There was even a poster that it was supposed to come out in 95. They were breaking new ground, and, like, bless their hearts, it was a very, like, good game. But it's rough, and there were, like, weird mistakes. I don't remember if you remember, but there was a hotel in Celadon where they had to, like, quickly just reskin a Pokemon Center for it. But because they did that, there was, like, an invisible ghost computer in the hotel that you could use. And there was just a ton of little mistakes like that. Like, you could glitch and get Mew, not in the way that everyone thought you did. You had to, like, do a couple certain steps and then, like, go between Lavender Town and Route 10, and then you'd suddenly get a random encounter. Sorry. Just deviating. Those games were very rough and do not have those quality of life improvements that I think people have been a little spoiled with. 'Cause, like, people seem to forget that the only way you could go faster in those games was with the bicycle. And so if you wanted to go any reasonable speed, you had to hear that melody over and over and over again. There wasn't a whole lot to do. Those dungeons, like, oh my god. All I have to say is HMs. I totally forgot about them because they've been gone. Yep. HMs were one of the worst things.
Especially because none of them did anything good, really, in battle.
I mean, some of them were okay. There was like fly and surf and stuff.
Yeah.
But like, you don't have to use those anymore. And like, yeah, it's really funny to watch Eevee just suddenly know how to fly a like flying apparatus
with balloons.
But like, it used to be incredibly inconvenient to get around the Pokemon world, and if you wanted like a battle ready team, it had to be different from your like overworld team, because otherwise like you don't have surf and suddenly like half of the map is, or I'd say about like an eighth of the map is suddenly gone for you. No, there were a lot of quality of life improvements, and I think that people are gonna more fondly remember Let's Go, or like actually be able to come back to it a lot easier than they're gonna be able to those original games.
Yeah, I mean, another big quality of life improvement, you're walking around with a box of Pokeballs instead of having to go to a computer. So you don't have to just keep on transferring stuff out of your bag, out of your party, and you can just swap them out, even while you're in a dungeon. I mean, that's been absolutely excellent.
Yeah, I forgot about that, where I was like, oh, hey, I caught a Ghastly. I want to use it right now, and I didn't have to, like, stop what I was doing.
Yeah, and go find a Poke Center. Like, I caught myself multiple times going to a Poke Center for no reason. I'm like, oh yeah, I don't need to do this. There's no computers. Yes, sweet. It's tough, because I feel like Let's Go would not be nearly as good if it weren't for the original. And I mean, that's obvious, but I don't know. But I'm gonna have to... Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of people who are playing Let's Go that didn't play the original that are probably enjoying it a lot.
Yeah.
Like, I've actually been seeing a lot of people online who have been converted to Pokemon finally because of Let's Go.
Oh, that's cool.
Like, one of the more famous examples is, like, Brian Altano from IGN was like, oh, I've never liked Pokemon before, but I've suddenly been playing this one for 3 hours. I think I'm hooked. It's like, oh. Like, it just took so many quality of life improvements. Sorry, I'm terrible. I'm talking during your time.
Oh, no worries. No, I mean, that's a totally fair point, and I've seen those takes too, and it's been like, oh, okay, that's cool. You finally understand why we are obsessing over these little fuzzy monsters. But yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with Kevin and say that it's gonna be so much easier going back to this game than it has been going back and playing Red and Blue. Because yeah, I've gone back and played Red and Blue, not nearly as recently as you, Kevin, but when I went back and played like a few years ago, it can be very painful. And it takes a lot of dedication to keep on playing it. I don't think I finished it when I went back and played it. I still had fun, but oh man, it was work. Meanwhile, this game it's comforting and it's just fun. Even if it is a little easy at times, it's still just fun to go and explore and pop different things out of the Pokeball so you can see how they interact with the world. Like when I pulled Gyarados out of its Pokeball for the first time, I was like, oh my god. Big bad dragon boy, even though he's not a dragon. It's been fun. So I'm gonna have to say, Let's Go.
Okay. I'd be interested to hear what if your answers are still the same in like a year from now. You know, after it's had some time to sit.
When we have Gen 8 and hopefully more remakes.
I mean, it's the video game industry. We always have more remakes.
Yeah.
But I haven't played Pokemon Let's Go, so I don't really feel qualified to like make the decision.
Quality judgment.
I mean,
but you just got a Switch, so you're gonna, right?
I mean, I don't have it until Friday, but I do lean more towards the classics, I think, in terms of remakes, just because like a remake for me has to bring an awful lot to the table to kind of weigh it over the original, if that makes sense, because
yeah,
obviously the original was good enough that you're remaking it 20 years later. But I do see where you're both coming from. Like, there is something to be said about seeing all of these pocket monsters out of the pocket and walking around and interacting with them and stuff, finally. in a way that people have been clamoring for since the first game came out. And it's definitely a change of pace for the Pokemon series, especially kind of combining Pokemon Go's mechanics with a traditional Pokemon game. I think that's pretty interesting. I'm not sure that it quite gels with me, but I also feel like I have the heart of a crusty 70-year-old sometimes, so maybe that's
and you're kind of a
me being
hipster sometimes.
And so that being said, I think I still would go with the original, just because, like, up until that point there really hadn't been much like that at all. Like, I think people tend not to give Pokemon enough credit for how much ground it broke, and how it really came out of nowhere. Like, if you look at the games Game Freak made previous to Pokemon, like, there was no indication that they were going to come out with anything remotely like Pokemon. Like, as far as I can tell from their backlog, like, the biggest games they made were Mario and Wario, which was an SNES game exclusive to Nintendo that used the Super Nintendo's mouse accessory. And
and it was really weird.
Yeah.
He had to, like, guide Mario through obstacles because he had a bucket on his head.
Yep, he couldn't get the bucket off, and Wario kept dropping more buckets on his head. Or there was also a Yoshi game that they did for Nintendo, and that was in 1991, and it basically just looks like a Match 3 game with Mario stuff.
I think they also did a game called Sparks something?
There's one called Pulse Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, that guy does have sparks coming out of him.
Though, to be fair, at least in recent years, the other stuff that Game Freak has kind of quietly put out has been really good, too. Like,
oh, yeah.
Harmonite was really good. I think they did Pocket Card Jockey, too. Yeah?
Yeah, I really... They did, yeah. I just really wish that they were let off the leash a little bit more to be creative, because I feel like they have a lot of good ideas. They just can't really pursue them. They also did Drill Dozer, if you remember that.
Oh, right. Yeah, I have a feeling that they're kind of they're going to be forced to be mostly one note, because Pokemon is just too much of a juggernaut of a franchise. I think it makes more money for Nintendo than Mario.
Oh, I bet. I would not be surprised.
Yeah. Just because I think it has way more merchandising opportunities, just even that alone.
Yeah, I'd rather cuddle my Snorlax than Mario any day.
Well, like, even just number-wise, you think about it, like, there's, 6 Mario characters that everyone can recognize, whereas with Pokemon, like, everyone recognizes the first 9.
Heck,
yeah.
At this point, like, the first 150 have pretty good amount of recognition.
Yeah, Nintendo just recently released a line where it's like, we're gonna finally make a plushie for every Pokemon in the original 151.
Oh my gosh.
And people were so excited because, like, oh my god, Scyther finally has merch. But yeah, no, like, there's so many iconic character designs in Pokemon where, like, even the second generation or even the third still resonates with people and you could still sell it. So, I have a feeling Game Freak is going to be kept pretty close to Nintendo for a while. I don't think Nintendo actually owns them.
No, they probably just have, like, some very good deal with Nintendo that keeps them from straying too far.
There's this very weird, like, because they had to figure it out for Pokemon Go, but basically, like, Nintendo has a part of the trademark, Game Freak has part of the trademark, and then the Pokemon Company has, like, a third part. So there's 3 different individual companies with the trademark, and that's what made Pokemon Go, like, so weirdly rocky at launch. Like, now that it's making money, Nintendo's just like, yeah, go for it. And, like, everyone else is like, yes, perfect. But at the beginning, like, part of it was the fact that there were so many different companies that had to go back and forth in order to communicate on it. It's just weird that you think about, like, Pokemon Go was released 2 years ago.
Yeah, that is crazy to think about. Well, this is something I'm definitely interested in hearing more from our listeners about, just how they feel about Pokemon Let's Go versus the original Red and Blue. So tweet at us. Tweet what you think. What your response to that question is.
And hey, on top of that, let us know what your favorite Pokemon is. Or for, like, a bigger challenge, what's your favorite from the first 151?
Yeah.
I can't, though. No, I can't.
You have to.
No, same.
It's too hard. No.
There's too many babies.
First
yes.
2 gens?
You're just giving me more variables. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you ask me, my favorite of the starters is even hard, too. So I can't. It's impossible.
You're having this hard time managing a ton of bricks. Would you like to also manage a ton of flat feathers?
Right? Like, no. So, I'll ask you guys, what is your favorite starter from the first gen? I know yours, Kevin, but let the listeners know.
It's probably the Bulbasaur line. It's just so adorable.
Bubba.
The tiny cabbage.
Bulbasaur is definitely a good one. I'm not a huge fan of Ivysaur, though.
No, but most of those, like, middle evolutions are kind of like awkward teenagers.
Yeah. I think overall I like the Squirtle evolution line the best. Like, I love Squirtle, I love Wartortle, and I love Blastoise. Although as a kid, like, I was constantly like, where did he get those metal cannons? That doesn't make any sense. So I feel like maybe young Jack was more about that Charizard. But...
To be fair, Charizard did get the best Mega Evolutions, which are actually in this game, which is weird.
Yeah, but I'm not complaining. Yeah. My faves are Char and Bubba. I can't choose. I'm sorry.
You can't lower it any.
No. No.
Wow.
Yeah. Plus, my plushies are looking right at me, and I'm pretty sure Squirtle's already pissed, so.
Yeah, you just threw some major shade at that Squirtle.
I did. He knows.
Yeah. A nightshade, if you will.
Well, should we wrap up?
Yeah. So, Kevin, where can people find ya?
You can find me on Twitter at kslackie. That's KSLACKIE. And of course on, like, Instagram and all of those other social medias.
All the funs. Socials.
All the socials.
All right.
Where can we find you, Naomi?
At Naomi and Lugo. And of course, on our socials at bestgame. I was gonna say .com, but that is not a thing yet. So just at bestgames. We do have a Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and we love hearing from all of you lovely people always, and we love the support you throw at us. We are not worthy, but we still love you.
For sure. And if you want to show a little bit extra love and support beyond, like, leaving us a review or retweeting an episode or all of that good stuff, feel free to head over to patreon.com/bestgames. And if you back us with $1 every month, you get access to a bunch of special programming just for you, our Patreon backers. Yeah, if you want to give us more, that always helps. We're trying to get up goal for the end of the year. Make enough on Patreon to actually support the hosting costs of the show, because we don't do that right now. And with that, you can find us on all the places Naomi just said, and you can also find us on community.extra-life.org, which is part of Extra Life. And if you haven't heard of Extra Life before, it's an awesome charity that help sick and injured kids all across the United States and Canada. This year, I think we raised about $12 million to help sick and injured kids, so that is amazing. And guess what? You can still raise some money. So if you head over to extra-life.org, you can sign up and still raise money until the end of the year. So get on that, and you raise money by playing games. So play some games, have a game night with your friends, invite them over, and, raise you could probably shake them down for $20 a pop, $10 a pop.
Shake your friends down. It's for a good cause.
Yeah, it's for the kids.
Money match them in Pokemon Let's Go.
Oh.
And
shiny competition.
And if you want to get involved in the community side of things or read about games or whatever, you can head over to community.extra-life.org for more of that. And on that note, do we have anything else we want to add at the end?
Just remember, you got to catch them all. Not some Pokemon. You have to catch all of them.
And not just one of each species. You just have to catch every single Pokemon you see.
Yeah, just decimate entire wildlife ecosystems by catching every Pokemon there.
And then send them to Professor Oak, because he apparently has room for all the Pokemon ever.
Yeah.
And with that, we'll see you on the flippity-dippity.